keeping a promise.
Yeah, I was keeping a promise.
Today on the Change Reaction podcast, you are going to meet an incredible woman named Regina Brodell. From losing her parents at a young age to navigating the foster system with her two younger siblings to working on her PhD, her story is harrowing. And the lessons that she has to share from that experience, you'll just have to hear them for yourself. Let's get into it. Well, this is going to be a very interesting and hopefully inspiring conversation. As you can see, a new cast of characters this week. Joining me is Greg Perlman, the co-founder of The Change Reaction, and to his left, to my right, Regina Brodell. Regina, when I was talking with Brooke, Greg's daughter, who helps us put together this show, and we were trying to figure out who we wanted to bring on for this round of episodes, she was like, oh, you have to meet this woman. She's incredible. And she told me just a little bit about your story. But you and Greg have known each other for quite some time. So, Greg, maybe you can kind of set up the relationship. And how did you and Regina first connect? And it was really through one of the partners of the Change Reaction, right?
Yeah, it was through Ready to Succeed, which is an amazing LA-based organization that helps take kids who are part of the foster system, get them into and through college, help them post-college with job placement, and doing it really straight from the heart. The two co-founders are just warriors. And so we hosted a lunch where we asked them to maybe bring some folks that maybe we had helped through them with some of our direct grant assistance. And we had this lunch and got to meet Regina, and I think she was sitting next to me, and we just kind of was listening to her story and just felt that she was such an inspiration, and decided to kind of follow up and create a little bit of a deeper relationship with her, understanding her and kind of wanting to help mentor her and guide her. And she's just been, she's just a very, very unique person with a very unique set of circumstances that she's pushed through.
I mean, let's get into it a little bit. I mean, I heard a little bit about your story, and it started before you entered the foster system. So maybe kind of tell us a little bit how you ended up in the foster system to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a journey. So I was raised by a single father of 6 kids, and I grew up in one of the poorest counties in California, right by the border of Mexicali, Mexico. And I grew up in a trailer park, not a lot of resources out there, pretty rural. And my dad struggled to make ends meet. I mean, we relied on food banks, and my dad worked only a couple months out of the year because he was raising 6 kids. My mom, unfortunately, had pretty severe mental health issues. So the last time I saw her was when she was getting handcuffed and put into a police car.
How old were you?
I think I was around five
Wow.
or 6. And prior to that, there was a lot of abuse, and part of that was related to the mental health challenges that she was going through. So when she left, things got really tough because at the time, it was me and my older siblings, and the 2 youngest hadn't been born yet.
So
And
you sit right in the middle?
I sit right in the middle. I have
3 of 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 6 of us.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm kind of in the middle. I have 2 younger ones and then 3 older siblings.
Okay.
Yeah. So we struggled during those early years. There was I remember always worrying about finances. I remember my dad would sometimes go to the bank and he would get a $20 bill and turn it in for $1 bills. And he would show me, no, look, we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine. But I still struggled during those years and relied on the schools a lot. I remember I had a teacher that bought sweaters for my siblings and I because we were cold and we didn't have sweaters during the winter. So we struggled through those years. There was a lot of love. My dad was very affectionate, and I think that was really special, especially coming from a male and a dad. But then when I was around 10, he was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's when things got really, really tough. And I remember finding out when I was hiding behind the couch that he had been diagnosed. My dad actually never told me that he was diagnosed with cancer, and I think it was just really scary for him to share that news. I was with him when he died, and it was like a very difficult moment in my life. And I remember him telling me, I need you to promise me that you're going to be there for the younger ones, that you're going to be there to carry them through. And so I remember being 14 and thinking, that is a huge responsibility. But
you knew right then, too.
Yeah, I did. I knew that it was going to have to be me.
But still, 14 and 15,
Yeah.
you're not equipped really
No.
to do that. So where did you end up after that?
During this time, we just try to stay quiet because my biggest fear at the time was that we were going to get separated, and we just didn't want the system to get involved.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, but I remember thinking, okay, is this how I can model for the younger ones? Like, I want them to go to college. I want them to see that education is a way that they can climb out of this hole that we're in.
What was that like for you, knowing that you had committed to being a good model for your younger siblings, right? You'd committed to going back to school, but you're struggling. What was that like for you with that challenge ahead of you?
I was very angry, but I couldn't really channel it because I always was thinking, like, I have to model for the younger ones. I have to, like, remind them that they're safe, because as long as they can see me and they see me being calm, then they'll know they're okay.
I mean, that's a wherewithal and a level of awareness that most people twice someone's age, most people in their 30s, some people in their 40s don't really have that level of awareness. It's remarkable.
But my mind was just the younger ones. I have to, like, protect them.
You're keeping a promise.
Yeah, I was keeping a promise.
But you eventually made it out of high school.
Eventually made it out of high school.
You ended up at UCLA.
I did.
Which is...
Well, talk about that. Because,
Yeah.
you know, there's if you read, there's a book called Outliers. You ever read Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
He's kind of a well-known author, and he talks about this outlier concept, right? That all the people, all the biggest successful people, there's something that happened in their world that put them in that position, like Bill Gates, you know, who he is, you know, from Microsoft. And then they kind of drilled back, and that his mom was a professor at University of Washington and allowed him to go into the computer room back in the 70s to start coding.
Right.
And so then, you know, that kind of did. So, like, they're saying there's outliers, but in your case, what was your outlier that allowed you to somehow finish high school strongly to get into one of the best universities in the country? Like, what was your outlier?
Yeah. I would say it was a couple of things. I had a running coach in high school, and this running coach, I remember when I switched schools, because I moved counties, and I remember this running coach, like, knew something was wrong, because I showed up on the track and I had, like, these really, like, rinky-dinky torn shoes.
Right.
And I remember, this was like a really competitive high school, so it was like some of the top runners. And so he pulled me aside and was like, you know, what's your story? What's going on? And I told him, like, what I was going through, and he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me for that year and a half. And he saw a lot of potential in me and was like, if you put in the work, like, you can actually do something with your life. And so he really, like, encouraged me to apply to UCLA. I remember thinking, I don't really know what college is.
You must have been still getting really good grades, obviously.
I was still getting really good grades. I was taking a lot of AP classes.
Wow.
And this is when you're in the foster system.
This is when I'm in
so
the
it's a
foster
little bit
system.
stabilized, but you still had somebody who saw
Yes.
something in you.
Yes, exactly. I had somebody that saw something in me, even though I didn't believe that in myself at the time. But
Sure.
I think that's really what I needed, is just somebody to say, look, I know you don't see it, but just trust that what I see is real. And so I had that kind of, like, pushing me. And then I also knew, like, at this point, I have to, when I age out of the system, I have to get out of here. Like, I just was living in a place that was suffocating. And there's a quote from this poem, and it was like, it's people leave home when home is the mouth of a shark. And it was that for me. And I knew I have to get out of here. And the only way I think that's going to be possible is through college. So I pushed and stayed up late, many hours, just, again, after helping my younger siblings with their homework. And so this running coach is the one that, like, told me, you're going to apply to college. Like, just put the applications in. And so I did. And then I got the acceptance to UCLA.
But where did the financing for college come from?
I was really resourceful, and I applied to a lot of scholarships. Like, I don't even know how, like, I talked to people at the time, because I also was really, like, antisocial. I was just very, like, focused on the younger ones. And but there were a lot of like scholarships in the community, like through the Rotary Club, a lot of like scholarships for former foster youth or foster youth that were currently in the system. So I applied to a lot of those. And then UCLA, I think all the UCs now, they have I think it's called Blue and Gold Scholarship.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where it's like a full tuition scholarship. If your income is below a certain amount, but I automatically qualified because I was in the system. So I was able to get a full tuition scholarship to UCLA.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, what happened to your younger siblings? Because you go to college, that's
Yeah.
a full-time commitment.
Yeah.
It's in Los
Did you
Angeles.
live on campus?
I lived on campus for a couple of years,
Right.
but then
you started on campus.
yeah.
So what was that transition like? You went from being basically almost like a mother figure
Yeah.
to your younger siblings, there every day,
Yeah.
every night, to living on campus, doing the college thing,
Yeah.
studying. What was that like for you? What was that transition like for you to?
For me, it was really painful. I think it probably was one of the most painful times in my life because I was going through this identity crisis, right? I was like, wow, I'm really transitioning from being a parental figure to being a sister. Like, what does that even look like? And am I going to be able to do that? So I think I was like navigating that. And also I had all these mixed feelings, like this huge door of opportunity just opened, but it was a heavy door because I knew if I walked through this door, like I'm not going to be around for the younger siblings as much. And so I can't think of a day when I was at UCLA where I didn't think about them. They were always on my mind. And I think, I dealt with a lot of guilt too, because I remember like eating in the dining halls and like eating all the food and thinking like, are they hungry or do they have enough to eat? And so I think I had to navigate a lot of those like thoughts. And I remember like trying to always like stuff extra fruit because it was like, oh, I'm going to see them this weekend and, bring stuff. But I also was really connected to them during those times, emailing them all the time, giving them little quizzes in Spanish because I wanted them to speak Spanish. It's part of our culture. And so I have all these emails I can look back on and remind myself, like, I showed up as best as I could. I gave them tours of campus and always checked in on them, even though the situation there was pretty challenging. But
How much of what you were doing did it feel you were doing for yourself? And how much of what you were doing did you feel that you were doing for them?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. So much of it, I would say all of it was for them. And that was something I had to work through because I had to keep making that shift that the more I can take care of myself, I can actually do better for them. But so much of going to college and getting involved in different things was driven by the two of them.
And then there's that transition period. So you get through college, you do what you've been doing consistently, getting really good grades, studying hard, getting through the entirety of the program. Where did you connect with Ready to Succeed at that point? Because they play such a pivotal role in that transition for former foster youth, sort of navigating that post-graduation period. So how did that relationship begin?
That was, I feel so fortunate because I remember I was attending a resilience workshop at UCLA, and it was being taught by someone that was helping out with the Guardian Scholars Program, which is a program for former foster youth. And I remember this person was like, hey, there's this program called Ready to Succeed. Like, just fill this application out. And I remember thinking, okay, well, what is this? And, the person described it. And I remember thinking, that seems too good to be true, but I'll go ahead and fill it out anyway. And at this point, I was a senior. It was my last year of college. And I had no plan in place. And I remember thinking, this feels like the system all over again because I'm coming to the end of something. I'm aging out, and my housing had fallen through, and I was living out of my car. And I remember thinking, okay, so my plan right now is I'll graduate, I'll stay in my car, and I'll figure it out. And so I submitted that RTS application, and then they reached out, And I had a phone call with Lucy at the time. And I remember her saying to me, like, Regina, what's your story? And I remember it felt like as if time stood still because no one had ever asked me that directly. And I always say, like, being in the system, you're so used to being watched, but not seen. And I felt seen in that moment. I was like, she really wants to know my story and they really want to help me. And it felt like for the first time, the wind was at my back. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe my plan doesn't have to be, live out of your car and find a way to get Eddie and Carmen. So, yeah, they helped me with so many things. They helped me apply to different jobs at UCLA because I did want to stay in the area and get more experience. At the time, I was thinking psychology was the direction I wanted to go in, but I wasn't quite sure. So they helped me with cover letters, applications. They helped me apply to this like community grant, which was like $6,000, and I could travel across the U.S. and go to different conferences and talk about research and some of the work that I was doing at UCLA. So they created that like platform for me to take that next step.
I mean, it's so much more than a safety net, right? So many kids who are in college and they have the means, right? There's some kind of a safety net, whether it's relational safety net, right, or a financial safety net coming from their parents, and these guys are really coming in with a whole slew of like what sounds like wraparound services, like guidance and financing, and just that encouragement and support to remind you that you can do it.
Yeah.
So that's got to be life-changing for you.
So much so. I was still working through that phase of like, I don't believe in myself yet. I just know that so much of what I'm doing is so that the younger ones can come after me and have an easier transition.
Can I ask about that?
Yeah.
You had done so much up to this point, up to your senior year in college, and you had done it all on your own, and you would put 2 younger siblings on your back.
Yeah.
But you didn't believe in yourself?
Yeah, I didn't believe in myself. I couldn't see my own strength. But I saw like they gave me strength. And so in so many ways, like I always say they saved me during those years because I think I was still like pretty broken from the death of my dad and not really getting closure and saying goodbye. So yeah, I just didn't really like see strength in myself, but I saw it in them. I saw their resilience and their strength, and it gave me a little bit of hope.
It really is, like you said, it's being seen, but then having that reflected back to you.
Exactly.
Because when you're so in it,
yes,
you're just not aware. You're just doing it. You're surviving.
Yeah.
You're taking care of younger brother, younger sister.
Exactly.
Trying to do everything you can. You don't realize it. What was that moment for you when you started to believe? Was there a specific moment where you were like, wait a minute, and you kind of turned the perspective on yourself a little bit?
I think it was multiple moments. There's so many pieces to my story, so if I'm giving too many details, you could tell
it's
me.
Great. I mean, we want to hear all of it.
Yeah, I feel like I saw my strength and I started to see that pivotal moment when I started like working in the juvenile hall and I started working with kids in foster care, which is kind of like wild that's where I finally saw like, wow, maybe I do have something special to give to this population. Like maybe I can become something that is going to help others see that there is hope on the other side. And so when I was working at the juvenile hall, I was working with a lot of teenagers that were part of a gang. And these kids had been through so much trauma. And so much of that like was mirrored in my own life. So I remember thinking like, wow, these kids ended up here. I didn't. Like, and why is that, you know? And I think a lot of it came down to opportunities and just a lot of like people that came into my life and helped me here and there. And so that kind of started planting the seeds a little bit. When I was meeting with these kids every week, they were giving me a lot of inspiration. And I was trying to also provide that for them. So I think I started to see like, I can do this work.
That's that outlier moment that you're talking about, right?
Well, the running coach to me is the outlier.
Yeah,
that's the turning point.
Well, there's two sides of that too, the outlier, right? Yeah. One is the coach, right? And the other part of outliers is the hours.
Yeah.
And then it literally can take 10,000 hours for somebody to be excellent at something, whether that's a computer programmer or a musician or a student. And you had been putting in all of those hours the entire time.
Yeah.
And not just being a student, right? Helping, but
Yeah.
really being a guide and being a support. You'd put in all the hours with your younger brother and younger sister, helping them, right? You would put in all those hours doing your schoolwork, not just to do the schoolwork, yes, to do it, but also to be a model. So it's those 10,000 hours, I think, too, that were the turning point. Because I'm going to ask, when you connected with these kids in the juvenile system, it's a different kind of relationship at that point, because they saw a kinship in you. Yeah. They felt the shared experience. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely the kinship. And I just remember like thinking to myself, like, these kids are really suffering, and they're the most marginalized group to me in society. And they're the ones that need the most amount of help, and they're getting the least amount of help. And I saw myself there too. And so a lot of these kids were like asking me, I really need help. Like I have all this trauma, and I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about my siblings. Like I don't know what to do. I'm here locked up. And I remember even a lot of teenage girls that were serving time for prostitution. These are 12, 13-year-old girls. And it's like, we're incarcerating them versus putting them in programs that will help them like leave that lifestyle. And so I remember feeling like there's such a need here, and I need to go back to school and get more training. So it planted that seed of like, okay, maybe I need to get a PhD. Maybe I need to like become a clinician and start filling the gaps here in the system. And so I think that was a big part of it. And these kids helped me get to that point. And I think it made me realize like we belong to each other and we're stronger together.
I mean, the level of empathy and compassion that you ended up developing just from going through your own experience and then seeing a mirror back of what could have been, it's just that's massive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a life-changing moment right there.
It was. I mean, those years were very transformative.
So you were in between college, you were doing the work at juvenile hall. And so when did you move, and talk about that, which I know, of course, your move to get into this PhD program. Was there any other schooling in between that you were doing?
No other schooling. So I had gotten my bachelor's at UCLA, and then I was still working there, and then also doing work in the juvenile hall, but no other schooling.
And then talk about the PhD movement.
Yeah. So I think during my second year working at UCLA, and this was like post-graduating, and I also was working on a school-based project at the time and doing a lot of work with like teachers and families. And but I started to put the pieces together. I started like thinking, okay, I work in these schools like in South LA where I work with a lot of kids that have been impacted by trauma who are not getting opportunities. I'm working with kids in the juvenile hall. So I started to really see, like, I see the foster care to juvenile hall to prison pipeline. And so all of these like pieces started to come together. And being at UCLA, I was surrounded by a lot of psychologists and a lot of professors, and I worked with a team of psychologists. And so I started to ask questions like, well, what does a PhD entail? Like, what does this look like? How many years is it? What can you do with it? And I remember a dear friend of mine at the time said to me, if you want to get a PhD, that's going to be the way people listen. Like, you have to get those letters behind your name to create change. And I remember thinking, okay, if that's really true, even though I didn't know a whole lot about PhD at the time, I thought I have to really look into this and figure out like how to get there. And so during those 2 years, I did a lot of like talking to people at UCLA. I continued to do research. I got involved with another organization on campus that worked with former foster youth that were adopted. I decided after putting all those experiences together, okay, I think I'm ready to apply to grad school. And so I did, and I was told like it is extremely competitive. You don't get in your first try, sometimes not even your second try. I think it's like around 1% of people get into PhD programs in clinical psychology. So I submitted the applications and I got several interviews, and then I got a couple offers, and that began my journey.
And so you got your offer. You were part of like a very specific program
Yes.
within the program.
Yes.
What
So
was
I'm
that?
part of clinical psychology. So it's a PhD program at USC, and it's specifically, at least my focus is children and families.
Right,
So,
but
yeah.
you were accepted under something that was very unique. Isn't it like weren't you saying that the amount of people
Oh, yeah.
in that, and then something that they give you a scholarship or something
Yeah.
within there that
Yes.
was very rare as
yeah.
well?
So like getting into a clinical psychology program is extremely rare, like less than 1%, I think, of students get accepted. And then PhD programs in clinical psych are funded for the most part because they are so competitive. But I also got this really competitive fellowship grant,
Fellowship, right.
yeah, through NSF, which is the National Science Foundation, and that is like extremely competitive. I think only 100 like people across the United States get that at the PhD level.
Right,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
What do you think was the thing that set you apart? Was it the lived experience?
I think it was a lived experience and being able to articulate that, but use it to create change. Like, I'm not doing this PhD because there's status to, getting those letters. Like, I'm doing this because I believe in social justice, and I believe that psychology and activism go hand in hand. And I just feel in my heart that I want to cherish people through my clinical work, and I want to lift up the voices of marginalized populations through the work that I do.
I mean, I'm blown away by this story. I got to imagine when you first met Regina, you had a similar kind of experience.
Well, we were having a lunch to meet some people who were part of a program that we set up at the Change Reaction, and I remember you actually had to leave, and yet you were doing an internship at Homeboy,
Homeboy.
which is an organization. We had Homeboy for lunch yesterday, and you kind of were running out, and I was like, well, wait, so she's going to school, getting a PhD, yet she's doing an internship at Homeboy, and she's had this positive attitude, and then so I did a follow-up just to kind of reach out directly, just to kind of learn a little bit more about her, and then understood, not only her and her siblings, but talk about a little bit like, even where they are. And I was just so blown away to see this isn't just a one person come through the system to the other side, but talk about your sister and your brother.
Yeah, no, they're doing good. My youngest sister's in her last year at Davis.
Wow.
She wants to go to vet school. She's really set on that. And then Eddie graduated from UCLA last year, and he majored in psychobiology. So he got through college. That was a huge relief for me. And now it's just getting Carmen to the finish line.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Right?
I mean, and that's really on your back.
Yeah, it is. But they saved me in a lot of ways too. So it's so mutual.
And are you now in your last year?
I'm in my last year before internship. So I'm applying to internship, and then I'll go off.
And then
for
you'll go
that.
off.
Yeah, a year.
What are you going to go off and do? I mean, there's so many systems that we've talked about in here that are, broken or failing or underserving. You've talked about the pipeline. Where do you begin?
Yeah, I think that it's such a big question, and it's such a special one for me to be able to say I can actually sit down and think about my future. Like, it is now more, I have that space and the stability to do that. And there is still a lot of fog. This PhD route is so new, right? Like, I'm still figuring things out as I go. But I know for sure that I want to do clinical work with marginalized groups and Homeboy Industries. I've been there for 3 years, and that place has brought me so much joy. And I know for certain that I will end up there in some capacity working with formerly incarcerated individuals that were formerly gang members. I also would love to maybe teach at the Cal State level, but I'm leaving that door open, but we'll see, because I think academia is its own beast, And I'm still trying to figure out where can I really like give the best of myself.
Right. Where can you really do the most good? Is it in the
exactly.
classroom or is it out in the
Homeboy is
field?
such a great organization.
It really is.
Steve Avalos, for lunch, and he brought, a few of the social workers, because we have our, change reaction direct giving program there, helping so many people who are really turning their lives around after being in prison.
And
Some
so many
actually
people
pre-prison, that weren't actually there, but mostly prison, who are ready to turn their lives around. And Homeboy has from Father Greg, who's been world renowned now, has this wraparound sort of hug that he gives to thousands of people. And now it's created a lot of businesses, the bakeries, the clothing.
And so many people who come through that program end up working for the program.
They work for the program, and we're it's probably one of our, I would say, we help more people out of Homeboy probably more than any organization in the city, because I love the resilience. And
it's
yesterday,
amazing.
having the few people there who were also social workers who we had helped, who ran into their own financial situation. One social worker there, they call them navigators, just got custody of his kids, because full custody from his ex-girlfriend or wife, and needed help navigating, a new apartment, things like that. All the stuff that we know that they have nowhere to turn. So we're, I love Homeboy, and that would be, a great place to use you. And I just feel like they're getting world renowned. They got a huge gift from Mackenzie Scott, and that was really powerful for them. So.
Yeah, and they also they specialize in adults, right? They don't have a child family component to their programming. So, and that's my specialty. And so my dream, like my big dream, is to come back to Homeboy and build in like a child family center where like trainees can bring their kids for therapy and they can do family therapy. And so it is, that place is magical. And I'm actually reminding myself too, another outlier was Father Greg Boyle. I met him when I entered foster care. And he, I remember his message to me was just like, don't give up and keep going, because there's hope on the other side. Yeah. And so it was kind of amazing that here I am now, part of Homeboy, when I met him back when I was 13, 14 years old.
You have had such a deep and varied and challenging set of experiences in front of you. There's got to be a litany of lessons that you've learned. I mean, at this point, you could literally have a PhD in life experience. What are some of the big lessons that you've learned along the way that may have seemed insignificant at the time, but now really paint your philosophy for you?
Father Greg Boyle talks a lot about this, but I think tenderness was so pivotal for me. I remember meeting people along the way, and I actually felt this way when I met you too. Like when somebody looks at you with a tender glance and you receive that, you then become that for others. And there's just a feeling that you get when you meet people who are really saying like, I don't want anything from you, I just want for you. And so I think for me, that was one of like the biggest lessons, is being open and receptive to that and letting that transform me. And so I think that's been a big part of my journey, is just reflecting back and thinking about the people I've met. Because being in the system, you learn like you don't ask for help. You don't ask for help. You don't accept it.
Why not?
I think it's different for a lot of people. I think for me, it was just a lack of like trust. And also I didn't want to feel like I was relying on somebody, because I'd been let down so many times. So in my mind, it was, I cannot accept help because there's no way that person's going to come through. It's just, I already know it's not going to happen, because you're in that survival, all or nothing kind of thinking.
Do you find that mindset is prevalent with other people who have gone through the same
absolutely.
Yeah, we heard it yesterday from one of the, actually from one of the Homeboy social workers, when he was talking about what we gave him to help him, just, the way we do it, just unrestricted, just here, this is for you because you're going through it, and you were advocated for, because no one does that. He goes, in my world, if you stay at someone's house, you're going to you're going to be asked for something back. So you don't ask. And he was like literally bringing this up, you don't ask. I would never ask, because then I know there's always going to be some payback or something I might have to do. Nobody does anything without some sort of conditions on it. And so that's what, we try to do, the change reaction. It's just, there are no conditions. People, every time, we have lunches, everyone thought it was like a scam, or one guy would talk about how he went on the website and looked at us and thought we were fake people because we paid $2,000 for his rent. And he goes, no one gives me $2,000 without something. What do I owe? Is it going to be 100% interest? What's going on? And it's kind of like, no, it's just, we're just trying to let you know that we care about you, that there's people out there who care about you. We just need to find you and be heard, and hear your situation. And so we get that a lot, the surprise of that, especially in communities of foster care and other places where people are very untrusting.
Yeah, sure, because they've been let down. The system is rigged. There's always somebody looking for something on the back end of it.
Something on the back end,
Yeah.
especially.
Exactly. And especially like me, when I was in the system, like a lot of the homes I lived in, the foster parents were just doing it for the check.
Sure.
Right? So you kind of develop that mindset of like, oh yeah, we are just a paycheck. Like this is what we are. It's this or that. And so you kind of stay with that mindset until you have these corrective experiences that completely shift your mindset.
Is there a middle ground on that? Because I feel like, and I'm asking, I'm certainly not telling you. I feel like if there's a mindset shift, or you can create a mindset shift of some sort, where accepting help in some way can change the trajectory of somebody's experience. I mean, is there a mindset shift that's possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of like literature that supports that, and they call it a corrective experience. And it's an experience that you have that is so different from what you have known that it completely like changes your mentality. And it can be that pivotal turning point. And so absolutely.
But it really requires somebody like you.
I did.
You had trouble accepting
I was going to
what
say.
I did personally. We have a personal thing, and I keep pushing her on something that I want to get from you. It's like, to help with your extra credits. You keep saying, no, I'm good. And no, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you're not good. Tell me what you've done, because she has to pay for the extra credits in school, which we want to pay for. And I'm like, come on, what is it? She's like, no, I'm good. So we have a little fight going on for her to get me that information so we can pay for it like I've promised you.
Yeah.
So
do you want to just resolve that here? Well, I'll wait.
I still wait, and I know that Candace has reached out to you on that.
I know, it's because you guys have been so amazing already. I just feel.
But that's what we want to do, and there's and with us, there's no payback.
Yeah.
It's for you 100%, and we just want you to never have to struggle with that extra work that you're doing. You're putting in all this amazing work, and so I know it's hard for you. So I'll let you come back to us on your time, but we're here, and that's available for you when you let us know what that is.
Yeah.
We'll check back in with you on it.
Okay.
Before we wrap things up, I wanna ask you the one thing that you want people to know. And you've had just so many different lessons and so many different experiences, but I heard so much of what you were saying about that pipeline, right?
Yeah.
From foster care to the juvenile justice system to prison. What's the one thing you want people to know about the kids and young adults who have been through similar experiences to you? Because I think it's really easy to look at kids who are born into gangs or born into circumstance, or who have been dealt a bad hand and then end up in the system to just be sort of written off and forgotten.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. What's the one thing you want people to know?
Yeah. I would say, I do believe that behavior is a language, right? And when someone has been through a lot of trauma, they transmit that behavior. And I think the thing I would want people to know is that I think hope to me is what's most important. And it's like you have to be able to generate hope, and it's a kind of hope that keeps you on your feet no matter what life throws at you. But I don't think that we generate that hope on our own. Like I really do think that this is where systems and programs, they step in and they help kids who come from these, backgrounds to generate hope and to see like your life can look different and you don't have to do it alone.
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah.
Regina, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
What a
absolutely, of
great
course.
conversation.
Thank you guys.
Always a pleasure to see you
Yeah.
and be with you. And even though I know it, I got more details today. So I always leave more and more inspired when I get to spend time with you. So just keep being you. Can't wait for what's to come with you in this world.
Yeah, thank you. And it's mutual. I feel that way too.
If you want to learn more about how you can support former foster youth who are transitioning out of the system and into their adult lives, we've got plenty of partners like Ready to Succeed and Homeboy Industries who would love your support. You can find out about them at changereaction.org. I want to thank Regina again for coming in and being so open about her story and her experience. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we've got a ton of other incredible, inspirational stories on our channel. So give this episode a like and maybe subscribe so you can keep up with all the goings on at The Change Reaction. Thanks for watching. I'm Matt West. We'll see you next time.